Because if they were just going to have sex on the beach, I mean,
I was really concerned about that for a minute, actually. I was like, oh no.
Sand everywhere.
Sand everywhere.
All right, this next one is from Here Comes Trouble by Simon Rowe. Quote, a clothed body is always human or human-like. A naked body is always animal or animal-like. Only at close quarters is the full extent of a body's wildness revealed, like when a bird gets trapped inside a house. One is moved to not entirely human thinking then. One goes towards its animalness.
Well, it's not that bad.
It could be worse. I'm thinking a clothed body is always human. What about those people who dress up their dogs?
Right. Oh. Ooh. Implications. Or human-like, as opposed to...
Maybe he's talking about the fish man from The Shape of Water.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably.
Except they used animal a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
And yeah, the dog thing. I guess it's sort of that story about the bringing the plucked chicken into the Senate and saying it's a man. So I guess it's that kind of thing.
Oh. I mean, what's sexier than a plucked chicken?
I mean, right. I mean, a coconut's basically a mammal because it has fur and has milk, so...
glorious.
All right, you guys ready for the winner?
I'm ready.
Bring it on.
So the winner of this year's Bad Section Fiction Award goes to Christopher Bolin, an American, of course. And this comes from his new thriller novel, The Destroyers. The skin along her arms and shoulders are different shades of tan like water stains in a bathtub, the passage reads. Her face and vagina are competing for my attention, so I glance down at the billiard rack of my penis and testicles.
Oh, God.
I want to add that this article from Newsweek describes the scene as gut-churning and confusing.
At best. I mean, at best.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that's really accurate.
Yeah, the setup for it is that the protagonist of The Destroyers, Ian, and his former girlfriend are on the Greek island of Patmos, and they're rediscovering their love for each other.
Thrilling.
Yes, she's covering her breasts with her swimsuit, and the rest of her remains so delectably exposed.
Oh.
But honestly, I can't tell if it's him setting the sexiness of the scene with the bathtub stains or the billiard rack.
Which is sexier?
That billiard rack. I mean, why?
Yeah, why?
Have you played pool?
Ever?
So he's either implying that he only knows how to play pool with 2 balls,
right?
Or he has 12 testicles.
12 testicles, or a really skinny penis, really
Yeah.
long and skinny, and just horrific.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Christopher Bolin is from New York and is an editor. He's an editor, an editor at Interview Magazine.
But he doesn't have one, clearly.
I guess. Seems like a fun party. They have it at a club in London, and they have a toast. And sadly, Christopher Bolin apparently didn't go to the awards ceremony.
Bummer.
And I'm actually kind of curious as to how many people actually go to those.
I don't know. I don't know if this is something you'd want to put on your resume, but I mean, an award's an award.
Hey, I mean, hey, the man's published 3 books. How many books have I published?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is how you do it.
Hey, it's something. I mean,
Yeah.
God, you could do a whole thing on the weird sex and fantasy novels.
True. It's bad.
Oh, I remember. I read something ages and ages ago, a fantasy novel that opened up with electrified nipple clamps, and I'm like,
Oh!
Slam the book closed, and I'm like, what the fuck?
It's like, you gotta be, like, really prepared for something like that. Like, you gotta know it's gonna happen.
And it was called... Yeah, no, it was called something so simple. It was like the Raven, and I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be good. And they're just like, no, okay. All right. Nipple clamps. Electrified.
Oh, gosh. Like with magic? Like, is someone just misusing their Sith lightning, or just
Maybe,
weird?
I think so. I honestly just closed the book so quickly that I had no context for it. I'm just like,
When I was a kid, I picked up a book that I guess it accidentally got shelved in the young adult section at our library because I picked it up in like the very first, it was like about werewolves, and like the entire first chapter was just like werewolf rape and like people getting beheaded, and it was really brutal, and I was like, hey, I don't think I was supposed to have this book. Just took it to the librarian, and I'm like, I think this is labeled wrong, and they're like, oh no.
Yes, for the record, this episode will be rated 18+, for the record.
Yeah.
yeah,
probably should have said that earlier.
They can put it in post.
But it's honestly, it's a difficult thing, getting a sex scene right, I think, in writing. Go on, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I was going to say, personally, I tend to avoid them because of all the numerous pitfalls that can come with it. I don't know what your guys' approach to those scenes are.
I don't know. I think, Brigid, you might agree with me that having it based in fan fiction means you see a lot of sex in a lot of different varieties.
Yes, good and bad. And baffling and confusing. I mean, it's weird with fan fiction because you can have some of the, like, truly some of the most amazing writing. Like, you'd be surprised at how good some of it can be, but then you'll come across something that is just so baffling, and, like, it makes sense because it's all amateur, of course, but the variety is interesting, and, like, I don't know, people, I mean, I guess, I think we could probably fill a whole episode with talking about fanfic sometime, honestly, but, like, there's fanfic that's, like, so bad, I can't believe they, like, looked at that and thought, yeah, that looks fine, and then put it on the internet for everyone to see. But then there's other fanfic where I'm like, that's better than the source material.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You know, and I wonder...
I'm so glad. It's just like how we used to be, Dan.
It's exactly how we used to be. We'll figure this out. You gotta take turns. Every time we do that, I go, and the next time you do it.
There you go.
Okay.
What were you gonna say?
Right, I was gonna say, I remember trying to teach a bunch of college juniors how to write a sex scene. And it was one of the first classes I ever taught, and it was horrifying to prepare because I'm just sitting there in front of my laptop thinking, okay, what can I tell them that won't make them burst into giggles? And I ended up publishing that lesson plan. If anybody gets bored and wants to look it up, it's called Sensuality versus Sexuality, Writing Convincing and Potentially Compelling Sex Scenes. But I remember that was a good old time. That was just, you get all of the different words for penis and vagina out as quickly as you can, and eventually the classroom calms down.
That sounds interesting.
It's playing the penis game as a teaching tool.
Yeah.
Is that in my human sexuality class?
Wait, really?
Yeah. Like, first day of my human sexuality class, she had us do that. She just had us say penis and vagina over and over and over because we would have to say it a lot. So she wanted us to get used to it. It was an interesting class, though.
Might be a good tactic if you're planning on writing a sex scene to, maybe do something like that just so you can kind of figure out how weird they look on page sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we noted earlier sometimes you can be a little too clinical.
Mm-hmm.
That's never really a good thing.
Right. But if you get too, like, I don't know, get too purple with your prose, like, it can just be really silly.
Oh, you don't like people's eyes described as orbs of time and space?
Or what was I mean, what was that one way of describing a penis that we saw earlier? It was like
a bulbous salutation.
Bulbous salutation.
Or billiard rack.
Again, Morrissey has never had sex. You heard it here, folks.
Why do you think his music's so sad, Brigid?
That's true. That's true.
No, he, I wonder when it comes to sex scenes, I wonder if it's better to be explicit like this, or maybe just suggest things.
I think it depends on your style, probably.
Yeah?
I'd agree, yeah.
Or just, like, I don't know, the tone you want to set.
Mm-hmm. Because if you want to write a funny sex scene, by all means use bulbous salutation.
Oh, gosh.
But if you're going for something, like, genuinely sensual, maybe not.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of these bad sex awards, if you go back, they tend to be, pretty hetero.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if that's a selection bias on the part of the literary review. But, it makes you wonder about, how good maybe some of and especially as how queer a lot of the fan fiction writing a lot of the good sex in fan fiction is.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty true, yeah.
Yeah, very true.
So it's
that is actually really curious. Though I do know it is, I think, harder to get anything queer published anymore. But
yeah. No,
that is really interesting.
That'll be something to look into.
Yeah.
All right. So, I don't think there's anything else to discuss with these fun sex scenes.
I think I'm just resisting the urge to go to my fridge and break out some booze and forget that whole thing.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we did it so that our listeners don't have to.
Yeah. We did this for you guys.
Yes.
We sacrificed so much for you people.
Episode 1, we're already making sacrifices. That's how that's how this podcast is. So the next thing we'll do is my interview with Audrey Hawkes, who I recorded my interview with Audrey in November, and then got caught up in everything. But it's a good interview about NaNoWrimo and novel writing and Audrey's work as an editor.
I'm excited for you guys to hear that one, because I've known Audrey for ages, and they are just lovely. And their writing is amazing, and yeah, I'm excited for that.
We'll start with the big one for right now in November is NaNoWrimo. How long have you been doing NaNoWrimo, or even attempting it?
Well, yeah, attempting. I believe the first time I attempted NaNoWrimo was in 2012 or 2013, I want to say. I didn't finish that year. I didn't get very far at all. I believe the first time I finished was the summer camp version, and that was in 2014. And since then, I've finished it in November last year, and then I'm currently on track to finish right now, but we're only halfway through the month, so we'll see what happens.
So when you started out, I guess when you had those failed attempts, and then once you've, now that you've succeeded, what changed, do you think, between the failed is a bad word, but unsuccessful attempt compared to when you actually got the 50,000?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was kind of a combination of things. One of them was, I think, just I had a more sustainable idea in, like, when I did it in 2016, something that I sort of had a vision for it being a long form story, whereas the other times that I tried, I sort of had an idea for like a scene, but I didn't really know how the story was going to go. So I lost steam because I had no idea what I was doing. And I still, a lot of times while I was writing, in 2016, I didn't know what I was doing, but at least I had some like major plot points planned out. So that helped a lot. And then also, my friend was doing NaNoWrimo at the same time, and we would talk about our books pretty much every single day. We would Skype or FaceTime and like write together or just like read each other's work. And I think that really helped to just sort of have someone else sort